natural as well as cultural resources. And for countries such as China, globalization has given them the benefit of giving cheaper goods to other developed countries such as the US and UK. But for countries such as South America, the chief economic export is in fact people. So we see that migration is a huge benefit which we derive from globalization. And this is one of the key excerpts that we see in the article which was given to us, The Curious Legend of the Panama Hat, which is a small chapter in the book Latin Lessons. According to Jessica Dell, who did a study called The American Dream, the main motive for Latinos to move to the UK or anywhere, the Europe or the US, is to make a better life for themselves, to look for better opportunities, and they feel that it is a land of opportunity. You know, they can move away from the corrupt and abusive governments and go there. So that is the main motive. In fact, in this chapter, they say that this moving abroad, not staying in your home country anymore, is a huge measure of success for these people. So our hypothesis today is to actually prove that this motive behind migration is contradictory to the behavior of immigrants or potential immigrants, and this behavior in fact affects employment rates around the world.
So in the year 2011, there are about like 2.7 million 2.7 million Latin Americans living in America, in US to be more exact. And this accounts nearly like 7% of all immigrants living across all countries. So why is this? The Latin Americans take it as a dream to go to US. They see it as a social norm to actually go and work there, and this norm has been passed down from generations, from their forefathers, fathers, and they are practicing it right now. They see it as a kind of a success if they make it to the US. It's like if they meet any random guy, they'll say, what are you doing? You're not going to US yet, like that. That's how they treat each other. It's not literally, but as per it is. So what's happening here in our case is that there's a place called Cuenca, and the immigration is so much that even the billboards across the highways will say, if you are trying to go abroad, just think your people smuggling is a crime. And they'll also show a picture of a boat where it's overcrowded and it's sinking, saying don't go outside, it's already there, like that. And we also have an expert from one association which has a 500 member club. The 5 years down the lane, it had 200 members. The main reason is the 300 of them went to US for their own life. So what happens here is the ideology part from them is they see it as a social culture and common sense for them to go to US in search of a better opportunity and better living. What's contradictory in that notion is that the amount of unemployment created in the host country where they are going, it is so far high that even common people in US are even unable to find such jobs. So the immigrants are going to US, right? So we might generally think that they will have a better life. So we thought about one of the Latin Americans going to UK, for instance, are called the invisibles. They don't have any sort of new power or something. They're just called invisibles because they're invisible to the society. They don't have any representation in any form as such. And it's been known that they are 10 times more prone to have work for more hours for a lesser amount of pay. And nearly 40 to 45% of the invisibles are prone to workplace abuse. Now if you look at the US, there are Latin Americans who are immigrating into the US without any official documents. So they are living there unofficially. It's like they don't have a right to vote, they don't have a right to express themselves, they don't have a right to get the financial aid, they don't have any right to drive also. So in this article, according to Manzanas, we find that the host developed countries are trying to instill their own identity in that, but they are not willing to let go of the cheap labor that they are getting from them.
Okay. So as Arun said, despite all the abuse and exploitation, in 2050 it is predicted that Latino immigrants will actually grow up to be the greatest minority ethnic group in the US. So that really doesn't explain the behavior, right? If they're going to make a better life for themselves and abuse and exploitation is simply growing, why would you move away from your home country? So the second part of our argument guys go to those countries, like you said, they get lesser than the minimum wage, and US and UK want the cheap submissive labor without having to deal with anything like illegal immigrants and things like that. Okay, so that is why they don't mind a small workforce coming in from Latin America. But what is actually happening is that there is a growing unemployment in the US and UK because of that. In fact, there's a statistic that says that 2 million engineers in the US are either unemployed or underemployed, but 30 to 50% of whatever new IT jobs are created in the US still go to people who are coming in on temporary US work visas. These are foreign people. Why don't you give it to your own US, domestic workers? That's because a foreign worker doesn't mind getting paid a lot less. So it's creating a growing unemployment in the developed countries. So this is sort of a contradiction. The developed economy wanted globalization and migration so that they can use lower costs. But in turn, it's affecting their own economy. Secondly, all the remittances that these guys get, the South Americans, whatever other foreign nationals are living there, whatever these remittances these guys get, they pump it back into the developing economies, which helps the developing economies in return. And also because of the brain drain, because of people leaving from these countries, the developing economies to US and UK, there are vacancies created in those cities, and then there's national migration. So people from nearby countries or people from nearby towns start moving into these cities and towns, and they fill in those positions. So you see, employment actually increases in places like, let's say, India, or in places like Ecuador, Cuba. In fact, in the case, there's even a statistic that says employment increases to 60% as compared to previous 40%. So unemployment is increasing in the US and UK, but employment increases here. So in a whole, if you ask a Latin American why he wants to migrate, he'll just show you this part, okay, the American dream and stuff. When you pull out, this is the ideology, that is the contradiction, abuse and exploitation. This is the ideology for a lot more profitable, they could make a lot more money, etc., etc. But now, the working conditions are so bad, but still the sons of the fathers working in that industry still want to join it because it's seen as a measure of success, becoming a miner. They have no other notion of success. In fact, the mining industry is so entrenched in that community, the Bowen Basin, that people continue to work there, the majority of 25 to 25-year-olds, even though they can't pay the weekly rent, the pay that they get, and they sleep for just 2 to 3 hours a day. So it's a study that's been done. So why don't these guys, instead of continuing to work in the mining industry, change their situation? They don't, because this is their perceived notion of success. Similarly, the Latin Americans, why can't they change their situation in their home country? Or many of us, for that example.
So when we search for the second example, we actually came across the IT industry. The IT industry works in such a way that the developed countries, where the IT industry bases, try to recruit from the developing countries so that they can get cheap labor from the developing countries. This in turn, what it does is, the ideology for the IT industry is that they will get cheap labor and in turn they can show more profit. But what it does for the host country is that it creates an unemployment circle among the host country in such a way that it will affect the future economy, and in turn it will somehow affect the economy, affects the projects that the IT company will get. So what they think is a good for them is again reverting back in the form of projects, and it's affecting them. When we look deeper into this, we came across the Cognizant Technology Solutions, wherein they hire, they're based out of US and they hire like 50,000 to 60,000 a year from India, right? So out of the 50,000, they are around like 1,000 to 1,500 are posted on on-site jobs in US. So let's see for Cognizant, the on-site jobs in US, they are paying 25% less than what they would pay for a US employee to an Indian employee. If an Indian employee, because of the dollar value changes, he is anyway getting more pay than what he is getting here. So it's attractive for both the Indian employee and the Cognizant firm. There's an article in Business Standard which states that like 25% of the profit, there is an increase in 25% profit margin of hiring an Indian employee and making him work in US. This is actually highly profitable for CTS. But what it does is, if you look at from the US point of view, there are more than one IT company present, like CTS, Amazon, Microsoft, Google. Everyone does the same thing, and it creates a whole lot of unemployment base surrounding in US. This base creates in such a way that if any more like the unemployment base is such a way that it will affect the economy of US and in turn affect the economy of CTOs, like future orders based on the economy of US. So what they think is a good, what they think is highly profitable for them is in turn affecting them, and it's a precursor of their own downfall. That's what we have, and but as two groups before pointed that there is like difficulty in getting to US. That is because there is business standard. The same article says that the US Senate has regulated the amount of H-1B visas foreseeing this unemployment and try to create more employment base for their own citizens. So they are trying to reduce the amount of visas offered.
Thank you.